Like, I think he's a massive chip. I don't know how you guys feel, but like, I think
100%.
he'd be one of the most coveted players right now, I would think.
Especially if Ekblad stays in Florida somehow. Now, maybe he doesn't, but the market for right-hand D is very thin, and he's a guy making half of almost half of his worth.
I was going to say to you, Ekblad's going to come probably something with an 8 in it, ish, 9. I don't know. What is Ekblad going to get? Higher than? Okay, so 9. Let's call 9.
Unless
he stays in
the
Florida.
open market. So Anderson at what? 4.8?
4.55.
That's that. What did I just say? The most coveted. Like I think, Connie's in a real strength or position of strength if he wants to move that player and decides to. And I don't know what the plan is, but if he's not going to sign long term with Calgary, you've got to go and try and get a king's ransom for him.
You said you don't know what the plan is. We've talked a lot about that. Like,
it feels like to me, Rasmus Andersson would stay in Calgary, but as opposed to taking a hometown discount, it's a no. You want me
tax? What do you call it? The Alberta tax or the Calgary tax?
Calgary tax, the Edmonton tax, the Winnipeg tax, the Ottawa tax. Yeah. Yes, I think if you look at it, some of his buddies are gone off the team, though, right? Markstrom, Lindholm, who else? Who's the other Swedish meatballs?
I think he was tight with those other guys too, though, like the Kajuks and Bennett's and that whole crew.
Is this not just about how competitive your team is? Like, if they're a playoff team, I think he's happy to re-up, and it makes sense. But they're clearly, a team that could be really, really bad next year if they don't get as many saves. And he's like, look at my age. This is my one chance at UFA, and I can go pick a competitive team.
He's been playing for cheap for what he does for us.
So then let's separate the two. The money and the term. What's it going to look like for him financially if he goes to UFA status?
In a year, I'd say 8.5 times 7 minimum.
Right. So something with an 8 in it, maybe a great year, maybe more. You're creating marketplace. So you're putting $60 million. That's pretty much. No, I'm not doing the numbers well.
65.
No, what am I? 8 times 7.
70 million, 65 to 70 million bucks.
60 plus million. Calgary would probably pay that to have him stay, but
it depends on what you're getting in the. That's the problem. Is that we can keep him and we can sign him to whatever the hell we want. We've got cap space and he can play.
I'm not so sure they would at that number.
I know.
You don't think so?
But the equation has to include what are we being offered for him? 2 first rounders, right? Like that's part of it. If it's a 4th, like they got for Kane, we'll keep him.
Okay, but do you want draft currency or do you want young player currency?
I think they're this is what we've debated about all the time.
What is it?
I don't know. I'm sure Craig has an idea, but I can't figure out what their plan is. They're calling it a soft rebuild, which is a bunch of bullshit. And it's you're going to have to make moves one way or the other. Well, it is because
I just laugh.
We'll watch those top teams, and you need a Barkov. And Barkov's not a 100-point guy, but Barkov shuts down 100-point guys. Right. Oilers are in the final because they've got 100-point guys. We don't have either.
Right.
And you can be competitive and stay middle of the road. And our position, and this does not have to be Mr. Edwards or Connery's position, our position is I want a 10-year window where the Calgary Flames are front runners as far as competing for a Stanley Cup. It's not make the playoffs, maybe. It's not in 1 year and then miss for 2 and then in for 2 and out for 1. So it's a 10-year window of good, solid, we have a chance to win.
Okay, so how do you do that with Kadri, Backlund, Coleman?
You don't.
You trade them.
You trade their asses is what I've been saying all along.
Right.
Although I did tell you that it dawned on me, but they should have got a scorer last.
I got yelled at for saying they have to trade Anderson in January. We've come around.
Well, that's fair. But at that point,
I think Anderson is less of the issue. Sorry for interrupting you there.
No.
Like, I can see a signing of Anderson because I think he's still capable in 5 years. And I don't think even at 8 or 8.5 in 6 years that he's going to drop off so drastically that he can't play. Maybe I'm wrong, but.
Well, the cap will be a lot higher in 5 years or whatever too, right? So $8 million is not going to be as huge of a dent if there's some erosion. But I think the biggest thing is you come back to the word plan. Okay. So last year, the goalie stands on his head and, what a 96-point team that still misses the playoffs, which is crazy,
Tiebreak.
that it is still 96.
It's a record, right?
It is the record, I believe, right?
Like 3 times ever, 96 hasn't gotten in. It's wild. Yeah.
So I guess you look at it, can Wolf have growth, or is you're hoping that he replicates? That's the biggest thing. If he gives some replication, then the team is going to be a 90-plus point team again, just because the goalie gives you a chance. Who had down years last year, who can maybe, is there internal growth that you would be banking on?
Yeah, Sharangovich was terrible. Zary was hurt a lot.
Coronado
should be better. The issue becomes then that Kadri was really good. Is he going to continue on that at 34, 35 or whatever it is? Backlund, we don't rely on him for points, but he has to be impactful. He's getting old.
Yeah,
he is aging. Frost never put up numbers that Farabee never put up numbers like there's room for growth, but it's the same. I say it all the time at training camp. Oh, we got all these young guys. God, they're good. These guys look pretty good. Hey, don't they look good? No. You have to compare them against the rest of the league.
Yeah.
It's because the rest of the league's trying to get better too.
I get it, but young guys have to be part of the equation if you're going to grow the program. And so if Andersson can fetch you a high draft pick and a really good prospect, live player, younger, like Connie tried to do it last year, Farabee, Frost, you get that mid-20s player that can fit in with the young guys. And that has to be, if Andersson, you're going to bring in somebody young. Like, I don't even know what the trade looks like, but Bowen Byram should be a guy who's on the radar. Like, I like Bowen Byram.
Sure.
I don't know
That's
why
the age range they should hunt for sure. Yeah. And
Yeah.
they will. Like the Lindholm deal is the template. You got a first, you got some prospects and picks, and you got a roster player that maybe you can flip or keep if it pans out. And Kuzmenko did both here. He was unreal after the trade that year, dog shirt until they traded him, and then great again in LA. That's got to be where you start, is you say, okay, the minimum here is a first to prospect, a roster player, and let the bidding war begin. Keep adding better roster players and more picks if you want them.
Yeah.
And we talked about it earlier this week, James. I'm curious your thoughts. What we're hearing from the insiders like Pierre LeBrun is they've exchanged their numbers. Here's our ballpark, and it's like, ooh, that's tens of millions apart on a 7-8 year kind of a term. So we're going to make a trade. You've made it clear that you're probably ready to move on. When do you want this deal done? Because a lot of times it'll be, oh, hey, we're fine bringing him into the season. He's got a contract. He's a signed player. I feel like this is a situation where I'm not doing that if I'm Craig Conroy, but what are your thoughts on that?
The only reason I think you could probably have potentially a peak return right now is because I think the UFA class is weaker. So you're looking to a lot of managers, and people I talk to are saying you might see a more proactive trade market than you do UFA. You're not spending, like, managers aren't just going to spend money for the sake of, hey, we got cap space, so we better do this. Because why would you waste money? And that's the wrong term. Why would you spend money on a player that's just okay for your program? Instead of if you covet somebody, go get them. Instead of going, hey, you know what? We need a second line center. P.S. Suter's out there. He's really a 3, but we're going to force feed him in 2 and overpay him in UFC or as a UFA. It doesn't make sense. So what I'm hearing, again, I'm sure you guys hear the same thing, and we see it on, X and all of that, is managers, like, there's a lot of chatter going on. Now, I say it every year. Maybe I'm hoping it's just wishful thinking. I feel like all hell's going to break loose here. And in a good way, where it's like we're going to see a lot of musical chairs. We're going to see a lot of teams. And I'm going to pose this to you three, though. Is there one team that is waving the white flag going, we're rebuilding? Like
Pittsburgh.
Chicago.
Okay, exactly. Pittsburgh. And who?
Was Chicago still part of that?
Oh, yeah.
Chicago is, okay, Chicago, yes, is bottomed out, but they're trying to get better. So
Yeah,
they're
they're not coming down. They're
Right.
They're
starting
not
to try to-
selling.
yeah.
They're
So-
starting to build.
You're right. There's one team that I think has probably been given the green light to start to move some players out. It seems like Pittsburgh is the team.
Hey, buddies, thanks for watching. We appreciate it. Also, if you could throw in a like and subscribe, it does help us out with what it is we are doing. And check out more at flamesnation.ca.